Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name's William, this is iRacing, and today I'm going to be driving the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport around Barcelona-Catalunya. Going to have a hot lap for you set up and a bit of a track guide as well for, this is for the Michelin Pilot Challenge series in iRacing, the official iRacing series. They're going to Catalunya for this week for a 45-minute race, GT4 TCR, and like I said, we'll be doing the Porsche Cayman GT4 car in this video. So as always, like I said, we'll have the hot lap and then track guide and my setup as well. If you want to see more of these videos, be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments below. Don't typically do iRacing stuff, so hearing from you guys does let me know that you're interested in this kind of stuff. As always, if you do like the video, give it a like. It does help me out a ton. I know you hear that in every single YouTube video, but it really does help me out, so I appreciate it. Thank you all so much for the support. Let's get on into the hot lap, and I'll be back with you to go over the track guide. Enjoy. Okay, that was a hot lap around Catalunya, so we will go ahead and get on into the track guide now. We're on the start-finish line, starting the lap on the front straight, going down all the way towards turn 1 here. The main thing to talk about here is keeping the car as far over to the left as possible, and that means once this curbing and green painted area pops up on the left of the track, go ahead and hop over onto it to really open up the entry for turn 1. But be careful, as if you do go, I think you could straddle this red and white curb, but if you go a little bit over half a car over the red and white, you can actually get a 1x, and it's a pretty dumb 1x to get. I've definitely done it in the past in quali laps and stuff like that, and it is very annoying. Nevertheless, go ahead and talk about the braking marker. It's kind of a theme for a couple corners around this track. There's not really a good one, so I'm just going to try and talk through what I use, but it's not great. And unfortunately, there's going to be a little bit of a lack of detail for some of the corners around this track because of it. But for turn 1 on this track, my braking marker is actually all the way over on the right side of the track. It is the end of this access road that you see here on the right. You can kind of use this Marshall stand, post, whatever, on the left and just brake after you've passed it for a moment, but the access road is pretty accurate. So hard onto the brakes for turn one, and you can see here straddling this red and white curb. Um, this white line is kind of my turn-in point. I want to rotate the car into turn one, and I'm aiming for this red and white curb on the apex. Just want to touch my right tires on it. The second my right tires are coming in contact with the curb, picking the throttle back up. You can see this big yellow curb here. If you're taking this line and you're hitting just this red and white curb, make sure you don't hit this. It will really unsettle the car. If you're searching for just that last little bit of time around the track, you can actually straddle this yellow curb by just putting your right side tires on the right of it, left side tires on the left of it, and running the middle of the car over the top of it. The car doesn't even notice it's there, and it can be worth just a little bit more time. However, I didn't do that in this just because if you mess it up, it it's really easy to lose the car in many situations. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless you're quite comfortable and you're, like I said, you're just searching for that last little bit of time around the track. So anyways, we're picking the throttle up. We're going to go full throttle for just a second. Then we're going to breathe out of it as we rotate the car back to the left for turn two. You can see how much of the curbing I'm using, just absolutely eating all of the curbing here on the inside uh, of the track. Just not trying to go any further than touching my left tires on this green. I don't want my right tires like up on this red and white curb as well, but just touching the left side tires onto the green and back full throttle the second that car comes back down off of that curbing. As we now go into the super long right hand corner, you can see I'm steering the car back to the left a little bit. I want to try and open this corner up just a touch. And as we rotate the car back into the right, lifting off the throttle, downshifting, and just touching the brake just a little bit, you can see just a tiniest amount of brake to kind of set the nose into the corner. Now then, we kind of coast the car there for a second, if you saw, and then I picked the throttle up pretty aggressively early on. You could continue to coast at this point. Because I picked the throttle up pretty early on, it means I'm going to chase the car all the way across to the left of the track and just kind of play with the throttle as I do. If you choose to coast a little bit longer, you can actually pick the throttle up and then hug this white line all the way around the corner. It's a little bit of an easier line to do. And there's really there's no right way to do it necessarily through this corner. It kind of has a couple different lines you could take, but nevertheless, we are picking the throttle up and, like I said, kind of playing with the throttle and chasing the car across over to the left side of the track, just trying to make sure I don't go more than half a car over the left side of this white line, as I will pick up a 1x. So the safer line is for sure to kind of hug it out on the right side there. But we go down into the next corner. It's not really a great braking marker for this next corner, but I will once again say just straddling this curbing to really try and open up the entry for the corner. You can see here these, we'll get a little bit closer. You can see here these white lines. It goes to the 100 board and the 50 board, which are located there, and there's these white lines across the track. I'm actually looking to brake literally right in between them. I think I brake a little bit late for this corner, but if you could have a mark down for 75 meters, that would basically be the braking point in my mind. But as you get on the brakes, it's an immediate turn in of the car, and you can see we don't actually stand on the brakes that hard for that long. So it is initially braking to a very pretty high pressure, and then immediately coming back down off of the braking and really focusing on rotating the car just as we pass under that shadow of the bridge. And we're going to try and aim for a nice early apex on this red and white curb. I do brake a little bit late, so I'm not going to quite get there, but the second the car is aimed in and we know it's kind of hooked into the inside of the track here, releasing the brake so it'll continue to turn. And as we really come off of the brake, we're going to go ahead and immediately pick the throttle back up through this corner. So there we go. We're picking the throttle back up now. A little bit of overlap there, but nothing to worry about too much. And as we pick the throttle up, you can actually just start to unwind the wheel and let the car drift out to the left as this corner kind of opens up on exit. So drifting it out to the left and not being afraid to go all the way over to the left side of the track. You've got enough time to bring the car back to the right for the next corner. And this corner has absolutely no braking mark as far as I am concerned. So I basically just kind of aim um, for like this light post here coming off, or whatever this kind of concrete thing is over here on the right. Just kind of aim for it and get the car over to the right. The second I'm over to the right, I know I basically, if I've aimed for something like around this kind of area, I know the second the car is over onto the right, I'm about at my braking point. So we go ahead and get on the brakes, and once again, it's not a huge braking zone, not a whole lot of pressure, because we're wanting to rotate the car basically immediately into the corner and absolutely clobber this curb on the inside. Whenever you do get the left side tires up on the screen, you'll get a lot of rotation in the car, and you can basically see the second that car rotates, I go ahead and pick up the throttle. So we'll just kind of watch that back uh, nice and slow here, because it's a very exaggerated rotation that happens on the car. So we kind of touch that green, and there goes the back of the car. You see how it just kind of kicks out, and I immediately start picking the throttle up. I'm going to use that rotation to my advantage and just absolutely plant the throttle and get out of the corner here using all of this runoff over here on the right hand side. Don't be afraid to, it kind of let you open the wheel up a little bit earlier and carry a little bit more speed on the corner exit. As we go down into the next corner, just kind of hold in the middle of the track. There's no reason to take this wider line through this. It's not really a corner, but it's kind of a corner. Some people stay all the way over here on the right, but it's just it's a longer way around. You don't necessarily need to hug this white line and take the absolute shortest way, but nevertheless, going down into the corner, this has a pretty nice braking marker for me anyways. I want to be about a car length prior to the start of this curb right there. So, and it's a very light braking zone. So we're going up to about 60% and then immediately trailing it off. So we're about 40, and then you can see how big of a drop that is after just that initial braking, because we're wanting to rotate the car into the corner here, put the left side tires up onto this green painted section over the curb, immediately come off the brake once I do that, and plant the throttle. The reason I am picking the throttle up so early there is to actually settle the back of the car down as it's kind of coming over and then off of that curb. If you don't pick the throttle up there, it can get away from you and the rear of the car. It can definitely start to rotate on you a little bit too much. And if you start sliding through this section, you're just kind of giving away time. There's nothing you can do about it. So we're picking the throttle up, and then not being afraid to use this runoff over here on the right side of the track, but trying to avoid hitting this yellow curb at all costs. In some cases, I've seen it give cars damage, but all in all, it is just slower hitting this curb, so uh, don't do that. Um, you could see just narrowly avoiding it, but nevertheless, bringing the car now over to the left-hand side once again as we prepare for what I think is actually the trickiest corner on the track. This is a blind right-hand corner. Our braking marker is pretty easy though. It is the end of this curb, and it is a super light braking zone. So into the curb, and you can just see like maybe 10-15% brake, and turning the car in. I want to put my right side tires all the way up on this red and white curb, just kind of touch this green drainage and pick the throttle up the second I hit that curb. Um, Using all of the runoff over here on the exit as you kind of sight it halfway through the corner. Um, just being careful. A good reference for about how far over to the left you can go is I try and keep my left side tires inside this painted bit of the curb where it's kind of green and white. If you're going any further over, I think it's a 1x, and actually if you drop some tires into this gravel, you can actually get a slowdown. So definitely keep that in mind and try not to use too much of the exit there out of that corner. So now going down the kind of back straight, I guess, around this track into the hairpin. This is another one of those corners. It does not have a great braking marker. I do know I want to brake before this kind of light board you can see right there. I think this is kind of what they use to like flash blue flag lights at F1 drivers or something whenever they're going around here. But um, nevertheless, this is about the best you're going to get, and you want to brake before it for sure. So just kind of spot it and then identify about how far away from it you want to be before you start hitting the brake. And this is a heavy braking zone, so braking really hard, and I did brake a little bit too late into this corner, so we're not going to quite get the apex. But you could see the rotation starts just before this 50 board. We go ahead and start turning in towards this red and white curb here on the left side of the track. Ideally, I actually want to put my left side tires on this red and white curb, maybe kind of cut it just slightly, but we don't even touch it because I missed it. Essentially in the middle of the corner, just go ahead and pick the throttle up, go full power, and on the exit, just try your best to keep it on this red and white curb and no further out. This green stuff and touching this big yellow curb is very slippery and difficult to get the power down, really upsets the car. So trying to keep it within the bounds of this red and white curb on corner exit. Now then, going into this next complex, it is pretty fun for me. This is actually one of the parts I like the most, but is kind of challenging. I'm gonna aim to cut this this red and white bit. You do get a bit of a jolt through the car as you cut this section. So you can see just the left side tires are going to kind of hop over this curbing here, and then immediately after hopping over, I'm aiming basically for my first apex in the following corner, which is going to be right around here where my mouse is. So just cutting that just slightly, aiming here and onto the brakes, about 45% brake, something like that, letting the car run out in the middle and then picking the throttle up and bringing the car back over to the right. Full power and just kind of playing with it as I was getting a little bit of oversteer there through corner exit. And once again, using the red and white curb, straddling it to open up this last section, this part of the track that in my opinion should not exist, but nevertheless it does. So the braking marker for this one, once again, not great, but this kind of yellow painted area on the left side of the track, obviously you don't want to be turning your head 90 degrees to the left to spot your braking marker whenever you actually need to be looking over here for your apex, but it is a good reference as to if you've got good spatial awareness of seeing it coming up and kind of knowing when the car is going to get there, braking right around it and giving about 50% braking. And once again, this is one of those corners that you immediately start trailing off and turning the car into the corner. So as we turn it in, wanting to get as close to this yellow curb as you can, but if you've learned anything about these yellow curbs by now, you know that we do not want to touch it. So just braking a little bit, and I'm actually carrying a little bit of throttle at that point as well. So you can see we're actually kind of driving through the corner and using the throttle to settle the car down as we go through there. Now then, on the exit, we're going to pick the throttle up, not go fully aggressive on the throttle until we know we're pointing the car kind of back over to where we want to be. We kind of want the car in the middle of the track as we go underneath this bridge, and then that bridge is basically the best marker you're going to get to go ahead and get back on the brakes. Alternatively, you could use the start of this this curbing here on the right, but you need to get this down, because if you go a little bit too deep into this corner, this whole following section is messed up, and it is super easy to lose half a second, if not more, through here. So we're going to go ahead and go through this one just a little bit slow. Um, you could see bridge, braking, about 50%. We're turning the car in, trailing the brake off once again, turning the car in, not trying to hit this yellow curb. We actually want to keep the car a little bit tighter to the left for this first one so we can really open up this right. And once again, trying not to hit this yellow curb. We slightly touch it, but it's not a big deal, and picking the power up nice and early as we now shoot all the way through the final corner. And through the final corner, There's a little bit of oversteer. You may need to lift off the throttle a little bit to kind of keep the rear settled. And then on the exit curbing here, just making sure you don't put your left side tires any further over than this painted white and green bit on the curbing on the exit, so you don't get a pesky 1x, and that will take you all the way to the line. One thing I do want to touch over just real quick, as I was kind of saying through this section, so this is super important, and I could have done a better job of it here. Uh, what I mean through this section, so you can kind of see I go to the middle of the track. Ideally, you want to be as far over to the left for this part, for this next coming right-hander as possible. Being further over here to the left prior to turning into the right, um, uh, is just going to make those next couple corners that much easier. You're going to carry that much more speed all the way through, which leads you all the way to the start finish line. So the way to do that would be, you could see here on the apex, I'm already picking the throttle back up. I could have just waited a second more, and the car would have really stayed nice and tight over here to the left side of the track and given me a really solid run all the way over here through the right. I could have just picked the throttle up super aggressively and been on the power that much longer all the way down. Like I said, you can see this corner is not really anything more than kind of just dancing on the throttle, and then you've got this huge long straightaway coming up after. So that one's super important to get down, and that section of the track is just, in all honesty, a massive pain in the ass. So either way, I hope this kind of helps you out a little bit. This track, like I said, it's a little bit difficult to actually do a proper track guide for. Some of the corners are just, it's a rhythm thing for me. There's not a lot of great markers, which is kind of funny, uh, given the fact that this is an F1 track and all that jazz. But there's just really not a lot to really pick up on the track as far as markers go. So anyways, I hope the track guide helps. We'll go ahead and get on into the setup now. Okay, so before we get into the setup, I just kind of want to go over the conditions I was running in for that lap. 108-degree Fahrenheit track temp, clear skies, 12 o'clock noon is what I had it set to for the conditions. You can see the sector times here. Um, I did lose a little bit of time, so it's not quite the perfect lap, but there's more time in the car anyways. Um, it didn't spend a ton of time running this, as far as mostly just making sure I liked the setup, getting my lines down, and getting the time down. There's a lot more time in the car for sure, but there are the sector times either way if you want to compare to them. We can go ahead and get into the setup now. Not a whole lot to talk about just because not a whole lot has changed over the last week or so. Lowest tire pressure still, just also still be careful. Um, it does take a little bit for the tire pressures to come up, and the car is a little bit unstable until that does happen. Let's see. Other than that, uh, I increased the bump all the way around, make the car handle a little bit better, especially in some of the higher speed corners from the front of the car, and also increase the rear camber, um, just because there is a lot more load. High speed corners where the lower camber was just sliding too much, and you don't really want to be sliding if you can help it. But ultimately, I think running super high camber is still uh, not exactly the way to go on the rear, as they'll just kind of fall off even earlier. So, um, nevertheless, it is that way. Before I switch it over to metric, just because I think that's easier to uh, um, jot down or transfer over. The fuel level here, 15.3 gallons. My fuel number per lap is about 0.6 gallons a lap, and I have this safe for a 24 lap race. I think the GT4s, based off of what I was calculating, are going to go either 23 or 24 laps, and that's enough fuel for 24 laps, and then you still have some extra for the pace lap and all of that. But that is me knowing my fuel number. Um, so that's 58 liters. Um, like I said, I know my fuel number. I kind of know what my lap times would be, so I could estimate it is gonna be in between 23 and 24 laps, and I know that would be safe. If you don't know your fuel number and you're kind of worried, you don't want to be that guy that runs out near the end of the race, because that sucks a lot, don't be afraid to add a little bit more fuel, a liter, 2 liters. Um, 3, 4, honestly, at that point. It doesn't really take a whole lot of speed out of the car. And trust me, it's a whole lot faster than running out half a lap before the start finish line. So, like I said, it is safe for me. But if you don't have the ability to test and kind of see how much fuel you're actually burning per lap, don't be afraid to add just that little extra bit in. Anyways, that is the setup, track guide, all of that. I hope it helps at least a few of you. Uh, I hope you enjoy it, and best of luck to you if you are racing this week. 45 minutes around here, it's going to be definitely just keeping it clean and stringing those laps together for sure. There's a lot of runoff around this track. It's not so super scary or anything like that, but watching those off tracks, keeping it clean, that's going to be the name of the game. So, like I said, best of luck. If you do like this video, give it a like. Subscribe if you want to see more. Let me know how you managed to get on this week if you're doing some races. And yeah, anyways, until next time, bye bye.